All right, we're diving deep into Romeo and Juliet today, specifically Act 1, Scene 2. Now, this might seem like just a simple little setup scene, but it's actually incredible. It's where Shakespeare puts three completely different stories on a collision course. And well, you know what that collision leads to. And it really all comes down to this one kind of crazy question. How does one minor character, a servant who can't even read, end up being the trigger for the entire play? So let's get into it. We're going to see how Shakespeare brilliantly weaves together choice, pure chance, and some serious lovesickness to set the whole tragic stage. So the scene doesn't even open with Romeo or Juliet. Nope, it opens with a negotiation. We're dropped right into the middle of some high-stakes matchmaking in Verona. So you've got Paris, who's a pretty big deal. He's related to the prince, he's got money, and he's making a formal request to marry Juliet. And on the other side, you've got her dad, Lord Capulet, who's thinking about the future of his only daughter, who, let's remember, isn't even 14. She's a kid. And right away, there's a disagreement. Paris makes the point that, hey, girls younger than Juliet are already married with kids. And he's not wrong. That was pretty common back then. But Capulet, her dad, he pushes back. He's basically saying, whoa, hold on. Marrying that young can ruin them. He wants to wait at least 2 more years. And this is where it gets really interesting. In a time when dads usually just made the decision, period, Lord Capulet says something that's honestly pretty modern. He tells Paris, you have to win her over. Go ahead, woo her, make her fall in love with you. He says his own permission is only one piece of the puzzle. What Juliet wants actually matters. So why is this so important? Well, it sets up this huge tension right from the start. On one hand, Juliet is this prize to be won. But on the other hand, at least in her dad's eyes, she's a person who gets a say. And this whole idea of Juliet's consent, oh man, it's going to become a really big and tragic deal later on. Okay, so just as we're wrapping our heads around this theme of choice and free will, Shakespeare throws a huge curveball. He brings in the exact opposite, pure random chance. This is the twist of fate. This is like watching a set of dominoes fall. So Capulet is throwing this big party, and he hands a servant the guest list. Simple enough, right? Wrong. Huge problem. The servant can't read, so he's wandering around looking for someone smart to help him out. And who does he just happen to bump into? Of all the people in Verona? Yep, Romeo. It's a perfect example of how a tiny, everyday problem can spiral into something huge. You can just feel the poor guy's frustration here. He's saying, look, I've got this list, but it's all just scribbles to me. I've got to find someone who can actually read this thing. And his decision right there to ask a total stranger for help, that becomes the pivot point for the entire play. I mean, really let that sink in. If this one servant knew how to read, the story of Romeo and Juliet just doesn't happen. They never meet. The play's over before it begins. It's the ultimate butterfly effect, showing how one tiny accidental moment can change everything forever. But wait a second, what was Romeo even doing, just wandering the streets like that? Well, that brings us to the third big piece of the puzzle in this scene, Romeo's own personal drama. Yeah, before there was a Romeo and Juliet, there was Romeo and Rosalind. And when we meet him, he is in full-on mopey teenager mode. He is completely heartbroken because Rosalind has sworn off men, and he is just so dramatic about it. So his cousin, Benvolio, who's kind of the sensible friend in the group, gives him some very practical advice. He talks about love like it's a sickness, an infection, and the cure for an old infection, go out and catch a new one. Basically, he's telling him, dude, the best way to get over a girl is to find a new girl. And then, thanks to our illiterate servant, the cure literally falls right into Romeo's lap. He's reading the guest list out loud, and then, boom, he sees it. Rosalind's name, the girl he's obsessed with. And just like that, Benvolio's plan to find a new girl gets totally hijacked by Romeo's plan to see his old crush. This is just perfect dramatic irony, right? It's when we, the audience, know something the characters on stage don't. Benvolio is all excited, thinking he's finally getting Romeo to move on. But Romeo is only agreeing to go to the party so he can stare at Rosalind. He's walking right into his enemy's house, completely blind to the fact that his life is about to be turned upside down. So let's put all the pieces together. We've got all these different people with their own motivations and their own plans, and they are all now heading to the exact same place at the exact same time. It is a collision course, and the destination is the Capulets' party. So let's just lay it out. You have Paris, who's going to the party to try and win over Juliet. You have the servant, who's just trying to do his job and get everybody there. And then you have Romeo, a Montague, an enemy, crashing the party to see a girl who isn't even Juliet. 3 totally separate journeys, all converging on one fateful night. And that is the absolute genius of this one short scene. Shakespeare has perfectly braided together family duty, personal choice, teenage obsession, and just plain dumb luck. Everyone is walking into this party with their own agenda, and not one of them has a clue how their lives are about to get tangled together forever. So the whole scene leaves us with this huge, ominous question hanging in the air. You've got love, you've got fate, you've got a bitter family feud, all simmering under one roof for one night. An uninvited guest is on his way. I mean, really, what could possibly go wrong? The fuse has been lit. Now we just have to wait for the explosion.